Hello and welcome to Think Shank, where we ask questions about sports that aren't raised nor explored enough as far as we can tell. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkShank. You can email us at thethinkshank@gmail. And I'm Skyler, your personal NBA junkie, critic, philosopher, tour guide, or whatever else you like. We're doing it for clout, so let me know. You can find me at Reinhardt Skyler. That's ReinhardtSkyler, no A's. And on Instagram at Skyler Sam, SAM, Reinhardt. So, welcome. For today, to kick off the pod and the network, want to intro the vision behind where we're going, the value, what we're aiming to bring you all, and of course, what you all should expect going forward. That'll be part one. And then after that, I'm going to elaborate a bit on my personal favorite under the radar storyline of the 2024 season so far. Wanted it to be on, I guess, brand and on time. Of course, it's the midway point of the season. We are just very quickly approaching the NBA trade deadline, February 8th. I think it's going to be on brand. And want to quickly touch on some honorable mentions as well at the end. So want to say an enormous thank you to all of you for tuning in. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess most of you already know me, so I hope y'all are well. And I'll just say thank you probably at least the second to last time for tuning in. So without further ado, welcome to Think Shank. Let's do it. So it is January 25th, Thursday night, I might add. It is 12:24 a.m. Some of us are night owls, and that's okay. We accept them for who they are. It is Thursday, January 25th at 2024, of course, and we are kicking off the first show of the Think Shank pod. So, what is the vision here? Well, I obviously have just been a crippled junkie for decades, and there's just so much sports media everywhere all the time. Everyone's trying to cover everything. More content is better, and just scream into the void. I found there are essentially more or less four main buckets of specifically NBA news and media networks and podcasts. And I think the first one are the entertainers. These for all of the play segments and gimmicks and, gambling and gamification and all of those things. Everyone's yelling. It's kind of like the SpongeBob episode where everything is on fire, but it's fine, and everyone's throwing paper at the fire. I don't know. But those are your entertainers. Then you have your reporters. We all know Woj. We all know Windy and the Hoop Collective, all of those things. Really, I have connections you don't, and I'm going to tell you about what they tell me. And that is honestly great. Next, you have your retirees. Shout out Podcast P, the eclipsing a playoff P. Clearly, the guy really likes being called a P. You got your JJs, you've got everything else. So obviously have a perspective and bag of experience that I can't personally relate with, and I can't really express how invaluable I think it really is to learn from them. The human side of sports. I feel like it's so almost cliche. People talk about the business side of sports, and especially now with trade season, but I think there's just so much to learn about the human side of it as well. There's just so many guys, so many stories. It's one of my favorite parts of the league is really learning about the people. So there's your third bucket, retirees. And then the last but not least one are the academics. So I didn't have a great kind of label for this one, but if you guys aren't up on thinking basketball, the dunker spot, Nick Hayes and Steve Jones are just fantastic. These are the guys who are actually breaking down schematics and trends and bringing in historical analyses, really bringing in a lot more analytics, things like that. Personally, I come from a engineering background, research background in industry, doing research consulting, all those things. Pretty experienced in numbers and in analysis. So my brain just naturally, I think, sides and wanders over in that last bucket. And so while I'm not a former high-level ball player, I'm not going to pretend, I have, and I'm just a savant. I am, like I mentioned, business consultant by day, engineering background in the past. I'm just a really, really curious dude, kind of like the adult version of your younger sibling who's at that age where they're annoyingly curious about everything. How does everything work? I didn't really lose sight or connection with that phase. I learned to mask it, but definitely a freak. So I would just say very, very curious, breaking everything down, figuring out how they work together. And I think from a logic and analytics perspective, I think I've got a pretty solid approach. So you just sprinkle in being an NBA junkie for a couple decades, and well, I guess it was a matter of time. So what is the vision? It's really simple, actually. It's, like I said at the top, I really want to ask and analyze questions that I don't really see enough traction around, and I don't really see raised. And I think that is the biggest impetus for me to jump in the space is when questions aren't asked, I find that to be the bigger flag, versus like who is going to take the amount of time that Ben Taylor on Thinking Basketball can afford to take and get degrees in or whatever to actually look at historical trends and et cetera, et cetera. So I think that is really the approach here. I want it to be oriented around questions just because that is kind of where my brain is always jumping off from, kind of my jumping off point. We're going to tackle them that way. And those questions can be philosophical, hypothetical, topical, of course, like here we are in trade season. Also, funny enough, it is literally rival week in the NBA this week. It's unfortunate that I really wish we had more solidified rivalries. Tonight, Sacramento played Golden State, and I saw some actually really cool stat. I think it was they hadn't won at Chase Center in the Bay since 2020, and I think their last however many games, I think it was like 5 or 6 or something. The margin of victory has been just unbelievably small. So those games are always super tight. Older sibling, younger sibling teams. Anyway, so topical questions like those. What is it going to take Sac to get over the hump? What was missing? What can we do? Those kinds of things. Great matchups, analysis, etc. And then, of course, the non-topical ones, which I will throw out some examples of later on as we go through. So that's the vision. Here are some questions I find really interesting. I'm going to do a bunch of the legwork, talk about it, and hopefully I can incite some curiosity on your end. Obviously, I'm always receptive and open to hearing everyone else's opinions and thoughts. And, I'm just doing this the best I can on my end. So please reach out. Show me up. Prove me wrong. Spit in my mouth. No, I'm kidding. That's gross. So this is what I'm thinking content and coverage wise. So want to get this just out and rip the Band-Aid off. I am a Raptors fan. I hail from north of the wall in this little town called Buffalo, New York. It has been 5 full days since we lost to the Chiefs for the 38th time in my life in the divisional finals. That is going to be its own thing probably at some point once I can actually motivate myself to analyze that. But go Lions. That's where I'm going to leave that. The Pistons are breaking records in the worst ways, but out of nowhere, the Lions are winning playoff games now. So small shout out to them. Happy for the city. So back to the Raptors. Toronto was my big market growing up. Drinking age in Canada is only 19. If you didn't know that, you're welcome. I don't know if there's a drinking age in Mexico, but I live in San Diego now. Virtually the mirror inverse of where I grew up, as far from there as I could get in the continental US. So grew up loving the Raptors, of course. 2019 was euphoria. Kawhi Leonard, of course, is incredible, and he's having an incredible season this year. Getting the team over the hump, not carrying them to a chip. Of course, some injuries and other things went our way, but just let us have it. We're foreigners. There's an entire country behind it. I think it's good for the league. So that is that. Obviously, we also got a bit of a roster makeover recently, which I'm going to be doing a separate breakdown of as well. RJ Barrett can ball, and quickly is really fucking quick and really hungry. Pretty much the entire team is. So they really deserve their own double click, which will be coming very soon. So, sorry, to bring it back to the show, as far as content and coverage goes, it's going to have a Raptor slant. And I really hope that along the way, you can pick up on, maybe slightly buy into the idea that they have the groundwork to be a very exciting team to watch. So that is it. Kind of off the top, talked about the question approach, talked about really soft limits on certain questions we're going to get at. But go Raptors, go Canada. Miss you guys. And we'll see what the upside of the market potential is as a Raptors pod, because that is an entire country, and I actually have no idea how many people there give a shit about their one single basketball team. Probably not many, but you're always welcome here, guys. So, speaking of makeovers and new faces, what is Think Shank, and what's the name mean, and why did I roll with that name? So, it sounds like a blooper compilation, like some Fail Army shit, and I get that. It's just for clicks, don't worry. Kidding. It's obviously a play on Think Tank, which, if you're not familiar, they are organizations literally dedicated to researching and studying world challenges and designing, proposing solutions to policymakers, et cetera, et cetera. I make jokes to the philosopher at the top and the philosophers and all of that, because I think that raw thought work is a lost art in a lot of ways, and think tanks in general are one of the very few places where you can actually be employed to just think about shit. And well, why the shank then? I'm glad you asked. Well, I often find myself asking that very same question while watching a lot of these games, or reading someone's terrible take or trade idea on Twitter. Really shanked that one. Like virtually any of the ones that are left, which, side note, the closer we get to the deadline, just the more hilarious things get. I love it. And you know, the more I ask myself that question, you know, why did that shank happen? Defensive scheming, people out of rhythm. Maybe it's not even a person you even expected to be shooting at that point in time for different reasons, et cetera, et cetera. The more I just ask that question, the more fascinating the league, the sport, it's really kind of become over the last decade or so. This whole concept has been floating around the back of my head for a super long time. And I think the NBA as an enterprise, TMZ drama TV show, storyline engine, inspiration machine, it's just really cool. It's really fascinating. The sport is fast paced enough. My attention span, like virtually everyone else's in 2024, is minimal. We're all just ferrets now. Shout out TikTok. And I just think the pace is great, the timing is great, and as the talent gets better and better, the older generation, sort of the changing of the guard, if you will, as I don't know. I don't want to speak too soon. If LeBron actually ever leaves the league, I regret to say that I wouldn't be very surprised if the man is still playing in 4 years and somebody gives him like $30 million for 2 years or something to just play for 20 games in the regular season and then the play. Like, I could see that literally happening because of his insane IQ. I just don't know if really that gets truly kind of spotlighted enough, but I digress. Changing of the guards, we got a lot of ring chasers. We got a lot of young teams. We got a lot of really good young teams. A lot of really good young players in different positions. A lot of new just play styles too. We got point centers. We got nonstop pace and space on steroids. It's just a really, really exciting team from a schematic standpoint, personnel standpoint, storyline standpoint, legacy, blah, blah, blah. So that is really where the name is coming from. We're going to do a lot of thinking. We're going to try our best to bring a comprehensive argument for an answer and bring up conflicting arguments and thoughts, etc., that personally I just think are making the game and the season worth following. And so let's figure out why that shank happened and what guys are up against. So how's it going to work? So I'm going to try to keep it short most of the time. So 1 to 2 questions or topics. I'm going to make all the titles questions. I just think that that's the most efficient and effective way to tell people what the fuck you're actually talking about. I love it. So 1 to 2 questions, probably around that 20-minute mark. We'll see. I'm really new to this, and especially when I care about shit, I tend to babble. So this is you're really gonna grow alongside of me. This is gonna be like fitness training for my mouth and vocal cords and brain. So ideally, most of the time, we're going to hover around that 20-minute mark. Again, 1 or 2 questions, just kind of double click into it. Hey, this is what I'm thinking. Also want to bring out the microscope for longer deep dives. I know I'm talking about all this weird philosophy type stuff and blah, blah, blah. Truth is, league like this is pretty complex, pretty complicated, and you're just going to have to talk about more stuff, and there are just more considerations and variables at play, yada, yada. And I think some of those deserve a little more long-winded kind of analysis, a little bit of a deeper dive. Certain things like is just foreshadowing, if you will, gradient of greatness. How much does a ring for the Celtics, if they win the championship, how much does that really help Tatum's legacy? I've been thinking about this forever. I think the Celtics have a chance to just be the Warriors 2.0. That is just an insanely dominant team. One, if they don't win at all, I'm going to laugh my fucking ass off at those clowns. And even if they win, I can't wait to see what the discourse is and what the performative outcomes are for Tatum as we go along. That team, at least the top 6 to 7 guys, are just unbelievably talented. So questions like that, NBA Mortal Kombat. One of the things I've noticed that irks me, I think, in mainstream media and discussion of things is the Mortal Kombat kind of position of, oh, they're not good enough, or, you know, Minnesota doesn't have the late game offense, or Oklahoma City doesn't have the experience, and all of these things. Indiana's insane offense does not stand a chance of holding up, blah, blah, blah. Well, against who? Different teams use different frameworks, offensively and defensively. And that holds true for contenders, obviously. I want to talk about those frameworks. I want to figure out their strengths. I want to figure out their flaws. And I really, really love to think about who is going to make who most vulnerable and why. So just a couple teasers for y'all. So those are just examples of some of those longer-winded ones. Again, most of the time I'm aiming to make these things kind of shorter. personally, I find a lot of episodes that breach that hour 20, hour 30 mark. Um, you're just talking about too much shit and you're trying to get paid with ads, which is great. Don't get it twisted. We're on the same team there. But I don't I don't know if you guys have time for that, and I know I don't. I work from home because I hate myself, so I don't even have the luxury of listening on my commute in sunny Southern California. So that is that. The last thing I want to mention is related to the vision piece for Think Shank is when I was initially fleshing out and kind of outlining, the whole vision, all the components, blah, 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 YouTube was at the forefront. I guess on my end, I've been a super YouTube user, avid user, super user, the platform forever. Maybe it goes back to that latent ADHD that I have. Just shorter content over documentaries, movies, TV show. I just yeah. So I just think there are so many fewer limitations and whatnot with YouTube. I also think the opportunity to present certain ideas or arguments in a visual manner is much more compelling and just much more fun. And I hope you can already tell that that doesn't just mean highlight reel that you just see in the background of most other creators or anywhere on Twitter. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I'm a visual person. Most people are. Eyes are great. The irony is that I'm saying this on a podcast to start, but I think illustrating, presenting things is fun. So there you guys have it. That is the vision for the show. Go Raptors. Go attention deficit. And go my academia colleagues that aren't screaming at each other with stupid take artistry, shenanigans, and knuckleheadedness. So, thank you all again. I lied, not the second to last one, but I just wanted to intro everything. And thank you guys so much one more time. So that'll be the end of the first part here. And coming up, we've got my personal favorite, Under the Radar, storyline so far. Huge deal. Stay tuned. All right. First go content. Let's get after it. So my favorite Under the Radar storyline of the season so far, like I said, we are going to stay on brand and run with the trade season theme. And to start, we have to rewind. So many of you all, I'm sure, will remember leading up to the start of this season, there was a lot of murmuring in another cold, snowy city that has an NBA franchise. It's called Milwaukee. Very disappointing exit from last year's playoffs. Giannis was hurt, part of it, but Jimmy Butler is just disrespected by so many figureheads, talking heads in the space when it comes to postseason leveling up. Bucks lost to the Heat, who almost didn't make it out of the play-in tournament. Again, Giannis, one of the top 3 players in the league, has been for years, was hurt for part of it, but was a tough loss. Fast forward to the summertime, most of the NBA community knew what their biggest issue was, their crunch time offense. Fortunately, one of my former favorite players to watch, tall, just every time I see him, just taller than I remember, wing called Chris Middleton, really was their guy. And unfortunately, after a pretty tough injury a ways back, he has been basically ramping up for 2 years now. And thankfully, this current season now, at least at this point, he's finally looking better. But, that wasn't where it needed to be. Giannis's game is, let's be real, it's pretty limited, but extremely effective. Unfortunately, in the playoffs, when you are going up against an opponent that has nothing but time and energy to dedicate towards studying your game and your team's game and your team's weaknesses and flaws, etc., it's going to be pretty easy to shut him down. So, before their trade that everyone already knows about already, I just want to remind everybody about Giannis's light, like LeBron drama queen light behavior. Interesting quotes to the media. I want to be somewhere where I can win, jabbing all over his, home franchise for his entire career, finger pointing at them, give me more help, or I might go. And of course, at that time, he hadn't signed his extension yet. And so what does the Bucks front office do? Well, starting point guard for the Bucks, this guy named Jrue Holiday, one of the top 3 point of attack defenders in the league, waning offensively, but defense is unfortunately at a certain point. I'm of the school of thought that I think defense in a weird way is almost genetic, at the top. Like I truly do think that. I think guys have just noses for balls and, these pantheon sort of guys, if you will, not saying like all time, but at least in the league, you're in the top 10 defenders in the league. I truly do think that there is some kind of blessed gift at play there, but, Jrue is phenomenal. So Milwaukee trades Jrue to Portland. Over here in my home coast now, for this other guy called Damian Lillard. Talked about lowballing some guys' value, like Jimmy Butler. Dame is in a very similar boat, particularly because he does not have a coach whose name is Eric Spoelstra and has not played in a system team that maximizes players and shields weaknesses of its players, etc. Dame has always been a standout stud, of course, packs up, stat sheets and is widely known as one of the best clutch players in the league. But, superstar in his own right. Top 75 all time, killer. So they ship Jrue over to Portland, of course, and get Damian Lillard. So what does that do? That makes Giannis bring out his widely adored smile. He signs the extension. The old head sports media people are just back to the SpongeBob episode where everything's on fire. Cancel the season. I already made the comp with the Celtics being so dominant, etc. Just cancel the season. Give him the ring, give Giannis a second. He's incredible. Why not? Uh, and then Portland pulls what I still think is one of the least talked about, most underrated, most hilarious supervillain moves that I can remember in the NBA, in frankly this century, where they receive Drew Holiday but ship him right back around to Milwaukee's mortal nemesis in the Eastern Conference, the Boston Celtics. Growing up in Buffalo, I know I already mentioned the Chiefs game on Sunday. Boston has kicked my hometown's ass in virtually every sport that we have. I think lacrosse might be the only exception, and I'm not even sure. For virtually my entire conscious life, and I will tell you right now that I am not the guy who is going to be rooting for them virtually ever in any capacity. I'm sorry. I hope that doesn't, turn everybody off. I do try my best, of course, to be as objective and level-headed as I can, and, back to the analytics and blah, blah, blah. I did say they were the most dominant. It just is what it is. I think this is pretty similar, like I said, to the prime Golden State run in the mid-2010s, and, mid to end, and then into the early 20s. Fuck that team. Portland sends Drew Holiday to the Celtics. The Celtics and Bucks from Milwaukee, they have probably the closest rivalry in the league right now. I know I mentioned the Sacramento Golden State thing. That has only really existed since last year. The Bucks and Celtics have gone head to head almost every year in the postseason. I know in this, Jimmy Butler Heat dynasty, fuck it, why not? Let's just go with the Miami Heat, Eric Spoelstra, Jimmy Butler dynasty here. They made it to the finals 2 out of 4 years. They just can't miss in the draft. And again, they're just the best system team in the league, in my opinion. I have held that since 2019 when they took that from the Warriors. So Drew comes over to Boston. Boston themselves, they've only made the championship finals once, of course, losing to Golden State because, of course, that was a very weird finals for me, if you couldn't tell. They had an issue with their former starting point guard, Marcus Smart. He was obviously a tremendous defensive player as well, defensive player of the year a few years back. But as a ball handler, as a ceiling raiser, meaning we need you to pop off for 27 points in a playoff game, 25 points in a play. Like, can you do? Absolutely not. No, you can't do that. He's going to try, but then he might have 30 turnovers. So, swapped him out for Drew, as well as Malcolm Brogdon, of course. Not to be outdone. I think he's unfortunately still underrated and probably going to get traded for this season's playoffs. That's neither here nor there. So Boston went from a team that was virtually contending for at least the conference finals every year since, I don't know, like 2016, 2017. Tatum and Brown got in there. And of course, people were saying they peaked too early, blah, 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 blah. They just got disgustingly OP'd this year. So I know I'm beating around the bush here, but I really think the context is what makes this my favorite, under the radar storyline, whatever. Portland's just super villain move here just absolutely floored me. I can't remember where I was, but I do know after I saw, all the headlines and notifications about that, like quick 1-2, like I think it was I think I want to say it was under 24 hours. I actually do think it was, where it couldn't have been much more than that. But there was very, very short window where, like I said, everybody's freaking out. Milwaukee's got it, canceled the league, canceled the season. And then Portland ships Drew Holiday right over to their mortal nemesis. And then, Boston had its own, of course, shortcomings overcome. Very similar to the Bucks. I don't know what is going on with this very common bug in Eastern Conference teams besides Miami. At least not when, they're on their fourth playoff series in the finals. But their late game offense is just always trash, and it kind of crushes me because, late game excellence is a huge reason why not only most people get so excited about it, but I think that there's just something so biological to it. And there are just a lot of, behavioral psychology reasons for those things. So both those teams had those issues. And so they brought in Drew. So in addition to his defensive prowess, of course, he's much more reliable than Marcus Smart. Very great low center of mass, very strong lower body. So can punish mismatches himself, which is extremely useful when you also trade for a guy named Kristaps Porzingis from my previous home resident city franchise, the Washington Wizards. So now everybody in their starting five can shoot threes, and then all of a sudden there's nobody to stop Drew Holiday from diving in there, or anybody. But I think that's another reason why Drew is unique. So much more reliable, I think, in terms of ball control. A lot fewer turnovers. He can play make, and of course he can defend better than virtually anybody at his position, guarding 1 through 4. So, needless to say, Milwaukee's preemptive celebrations were cut abruptly short, and the narrative flipped faster than almost any other one I can think of. Maybe since Kevin Durant fucking just nuked his own legacy, at least partially, in 2016. So anyway, you now have Boston and Milwaukee in an insane arms race, and they were, even without any changes to their rosters, they were hands down the top two teams in the Eastern Conference. You might as well press fast forward on your Roku TV about 3 or 4 times and just go to the Eastern Conference Finals, fuck it, and just see who manages to get out of that, and if they stand a chance against Denver or, insert whoever, that's its own pod, who unfortunately don't actually seem as dominant this year. Shout out the league just being great. But anyway, that move by Portland is just some 5D supervillain fucking fuckery, and I just think it's incredible, and I just think that they deserve credit. Why? So that was the background, that was the context. So now let's press fast forward ourselves. So what did that bring here? I'm going to say off the bat, of course, you can't attribute all this to Boston's 2 additions, or I guess, and subtractions, I suppose, bringing in KP and Drew. But it's pretty crazy. So where are we at now? Again, 44 games in. Boston, let's start there. Overall, the best record in the league, 34-10. They have the best point differential, which, if you're not familiar, that is how many points how many net points you are either winning or losing by. They have the best point differential, meaning they're dominating everybody more than everybody. Yeah, both. They are 20-1 at home. Let me repeat that. They have only lost one fucking game at home this entire half of a season. I did look this up. 1986 was the year, I believe, that Boston actually went undefeated at home. Fuck that fucking city. They have only lost one game at home. There you go. Again, 43 games in. Their offensive rating is third in the league. Their defensive rating is also third in the league. So they're top 5 on both ends. So that's bird's eye view, 30,000 feet. So how are they really doing this? So I touched on a couple things before. On offense, let's start there. They are the next evolution of Golden State. And what does that specifically mean? Well, on offense, we all know the Warriors for their pace and space that is built on fantastic, phenomenal, generational shooting. Steph Curry can run really far and not get tired. I actually would love to see him run like a 3,200 meter race against an MLS player or something. The dude definitely doesn't vape. I can tell you that. And everybody on that team, virtually, besides Draymond, unless it's fucking game 7, can shoot from 3. And Boston is doing virtually that same thing, but amplified and with traditional size. So what do I mean? Well, this season, Boston's effective field goal percentage is 5th in the league. What that means is it's different from just raw field goal percentage. It takes into account the 1.5x difference in weight that a 3 has versus a 2. So that's pretty good. Their half-court points per possession is 6th in the league, meaning you bring up the ball after make or miss, and you cross half court, and you start running sets. They are 6th in the league on points per possession in those situations, and I just want to define these off the bat just so everyone is, able to picture this. The reason why that matters is it's just not transition to just point the camera back at Giannis, where they just, he just eats in transition. He's faster and longer than you. And if you don't have 3 people in front of him, he's just going to dunk on you. So they can run sets really well. Their off-ball points per possession is 1st in the league, meaning that if they are running sets that incorporate schemes where guys are getting, back screens, etc., and that is away from the ball, and guys are running up to catch it or running up to set another screen for somebody else or some kind of misdirection, etc., they are 1st in the league. So they're running a lot of effective stuff. They're shooting the fuck out of the ball. And just to put a bow on that, just because I think it's insane, those are, again, like scheme stuff. So they're overall shooting really well. Their actual sets are really good. Let's talk about the threes. So with the pace and space stuff, they're not only attempting the most amount of threes of any team in the league. Side note, that's 44% of their shots are from behind the arc. So about every other shot they take is literally a 3. They're 6th in the league in the accuracy of those shots. Fun Easter egg side stat. They are 3rd in the league in corner threes, the air quote easiest 3 to shoot. So shooting the most threes, 6th at percentage of making said threes. In total, they are 5th at effective field goals. So even when you take into consideration their shots they're taking inside of the arc, they actually get even better overall. And then Interestingly enough, which I'm sure as we get closer to the playoffs, I'm going to tease all this out, but they actually attempt the 27th, aka third fewest rim attempts, but they are the sixth accurate in the league at the rim. So they don't really attempt that much at the rim, but they're pretty good at finishing. Turns out when you have like 6'8" plus wings who are hyper athletic and everyone else is spaced out and nobody can stop you once you beat your man. So that's the offense. So next evolution of Golden State, shoot a fuck ton of threes. Don't miss ever. Run really effective plays. Spread the floor out. Don't really have too many solid contests at the rim once they do beat their man inside there. So that's great. Okay. Defense. So this is where that traditional size comes back into play. You look at the roster on the Celtics. It is bonkers. They, like I said, can run that 5-out offense, including with KP and Al Horford, whenever they want. If you didn't know this, Porzingis is 7'3", or 7'2", or something, and everybody looks at Wembanyama like he's actually 9 feet tall. Porzingis is like 2 inches shorter than him and is a better 3-point shooter. And obviously he's older, blah, blah, blah. Well, I have no doubt Wemby's going to be great eventually. But anyway, when you're 7'2" or 7'3", it turns out you're pretty fucking good at defending the rim just out of the box. Like I said, defensive rating is 3rd in the league. Opponent 3-point percentage, how well are they defending the threes? They are 7th in the league. And how well are they defending the rim? Well, they're 4th in the league. Thanks, Kristaps. Really, really glad you're here. So I have this part, the defense labeled as Final Form LAC or Clippers. The thing about Kristaps at that size is he's actually a lot more mobile than you think. And it's unfortunate because literally tonight he had an ankle injury that didn't really look great. And he's had chronic health problems for a majority of his career, which is a constant concern. Probably should be doing more flexibility exercises with Wembanyama, but that's not here nor there. So Boston on defense can basically switch everything. Drew Holiday, as we mentioned, can guard 1 through 4. His comrade at the guard position, a guy named Derek White, virtually the same, insane defensive guard in the league. Everybody wants him to be an not everybody, but a lot of people want him to be an all-star because of his defensive value and his playmaking abilities, etc. Which is another reason why Drew is, his sort of waning offensive potency isn't necessarily that chronic and terrible for them anyway. But they can switch everything. So as most people know, when you run a pick and roll, which I think makes up about half of the average NBA's run offense, it creates an advantage because the ball handler's man has to fight around the screen right, pick your poison. Do you want to go under and let him shoot? Do you want to go over and give him, space in the basket? Depending on how you want to play your big man, is he going to come out, sort of flare out, et cetera, et cetera? But the advantage is sort of there. The way to counter that is to switch. And when Kawhi, Paul George came over to the Clippers, that whole dilemma just makes me want to roll my eyes. I'm really glad they're better now, but that was just so underwhelming for so long. But their whole thing was, you have 2 of the top at that time. I don't know. Probably not anymore. I don't know. In the playoffs, probably, but 2 of the top 5 best wing defenders in the league. Some weird reflection and similarities with the Celtics, actually, with Tatum and Brown. But their whole roster over there, their whole idea was we're just going to switch everything, and you're not going to be able to really get past us because we are so locked in. We are so able to play up, play down, guard different positions, etc. So that is the Boston Celtics 2024 defensive kind of scheme and advantage. Oh, and also their center is 7'3", so that helps. On offense, next evolution of Golden State, everybody can shoot, everybody can run. They run good sets. On defense, they are shooting at that Golden State level, and they have really tall fucking guys, and it turns out that helps on defense. So that's great. So what is the analysis there? So we have, like I said, defensive versatility. Shooting with the 5 out just creates so many advantages that guys like Drew can really take advantage of. And then you also have this guy named Jason Tatum, who I will be transparent, have mixed feelings about. I know I said earlier about one of the deeper dive prompts being around Tatum's legacy. Should they win the championship this year? Truth of the matter is, or the fact of the matter is he is a top 10 player in the league. I really, I think he has pretty clear development opportunities, aka getting to the fucking line late in games. But more often than not, he's going to be the best player on the court. And that just makes things easier. I know I paint not the most uplifting picture of the Celtics, especially in late game situations. But like I'm saying, is like throughout the course of the entire game, we're all biased to think the end of the game is the only thing that counts. But throughout the course of an entire 48-minute game, Tatum's going to be, more often than not, like the best player on the court. So that always helps. And then back to the Drew thing as well. I know I mostly focus on Porzingis there. The just blessing that Drew brings, again, with the top tier point of attack defender. They're going to be going against Damian Lillard, right? There comes Dame. They're going to be going against Philadelphia, right? And Tyrese Maxey, who I personally voted for in my All-Star ballot. Halliburton, Brunson, God forbid, Jamal Murray, Shea, like that's the dude. That's the dude that's going to stop these, star power guards. And what does that mean? That not only means that you're slowing down these guys who are, top 20 players in the league, but it unlocks Tatum and Brown from expending all that effort on defense. There's still great options too, which is fucked because, oh my God, Shea is still ripping us apart like he does with every single fucking team. All right, let's give him some new looks. All right, 6'4", Drew Holiday. Why don't you just rotate off and take any of the short peewee guys on OKC and just put Tatum on him? Now he's got length. Now he's got size. Let's just throw looks at him. Brown, get in here, etc. And they're not getting their, working their tail off trying to defend, the other team's best players. So you're just going to have options. Just rotate it out. In addition to that, Drew, I don't know if this is a career high, but he's shooting 42% from three. Again, with this 5-out shit, is every other play that Boston is running on offense is essentially culminating in a kick out to an open shooter. So, like, not only does it open up space at the rim, right, for Drew to bully ball his way in, or anybody, it just generates pretty open 3-point looks. So he can shoot, and the looks are great quality, better quality than he was definitely used to. And lastly, I personally am of the school of thought that Drew, I know I mentioned his offense is kind of sliding a little bit. I still think there's going to be 1 or 2 playoff games where he's going to pop off for 30 plus, and that's the reason why the Celtics win. Let's just call it what it is. It is going to happen. I mean, especially when you think about him being matched up with Dame, unfortunately, Milwaukee's going to have to get pretty fucking creative. I personally think. Otherwise, Drew might actually drop like 35 on him. So great. So that's Boston taking a step back. Drew's been very high impact for them. Their second year coach now, Joe Mazzulla, pretty contentious postseason season last year. Listening to his appearances on podcasts and just seeing him out there and in the games, it really seems like he's settling in really well, and he's clearly really working the schemes and the schematics here for the team to again maximize what they've got. So Drew's a really great fit in a really great system, and that system happens to be the next Pokemon evolution of Golden State, with traditional size, helping the defense, and just insane shooting. And again, that's from both a talent and schematic perspective. So that's Boston. I have them at the top of the Eastern Conference this year, even with Dame and Giannis. Granted, we do have a couple weeks for the trade deadline. I do not think Milwaukee is done. But Boston is all in this year, like I said, with their legacy just falling short with this group. And you've got some homegrown guys that, again, are like top 20 in Tatum and Brown. And then you got, so no fucking pressure. Go Celtics. I kid because we all know that Jaime Jaquez is going to hang 40 on him. And he's going to average 40 in the series. In the postseason, did I say Jaime? I meant Jimmy. Honestly, they might just trade off. I think that might be everybody's best case scenario. If we at least have one of the other Jays on Miami put up 40 in the playoffs against them. Anyway, so Boston's killing it with Drew. How's Portland doing? So to bring it back to my overall sort of take here, Portland is ass, and I don't even really think that goes to appropriately define what I mean when I say that. Not only do they have the third worst record in the league, they've only won 12 games. They have the third worst point differential, so they are getting beaten or dominated the third worst in the league. Their offensive rating is dead fucking last, and their defensive rating is 24th. Obviously, there are 30 teams, by the way. My take is, and that's not even, I don't even think it's worth analyzing this, and I'm going to keep this very short. They're the third youngest team in the league. They traded, Dame, took Scoot Henderson, number 3 in the draft, who I'm actually really excited for. He seems to be finally fucking figuring his shit out. I don't know why he wears glasses or goggles, but hopefully that helps your eyesight, man. But they're just like a young rebuilding team. It's so clear. Lots of athleticism, clearly rebuilding though. Guys were flying all over the place, just not really competing. My point is, in bringing that up, is that they fucking knew that when they traded Drew right back to the Eastern Conference to Boston after getting him from Milwaukee. I don't think their expectations are very high. Clearly, the changing of the guard over there, get Dame out. He's been our Iron Man, and we just kind of let him down. We're gonna give Scoot a shot here. They knew that, and they essentially did the equivalent of like a sinking naval ship that's in battle in the ocean that's also taking on water, and like just detonated a kamikaze atom bomb and just lit the ocean on fire. Or I guess the appropriate metaphor would be launching, I guess, a warhead to somewhere east. I don't know. But they just fucked up the entire Eastern Conference. And again, this is like another underlying point that I think is very important here, and why I'm just so surprised nobody is kind of double clicking into this, is like, they raised a double bird not only to Milwaukee, right? Like if Milwaukee was on a three-way phone call between Portland and Boston and they just kind of knew that this was, do you think they would have, fuck no, they would not have made that trade. I'm going to tell you that right now. That is their biggest obstacle to getting to the finals. There's no way Milwaukee makes that trade if they knew what Portland was going to do. So double bird to Milwaukee, get fucked. Double bird to Dame, their golden child, who was the standalone superstar that you let down for just whole fucking career. Just couldn't get your shit together. Weren't doing your job well enough. Double bird to Embiid. Not that they should give a shit about that, but I just kind of think that's funny. The really Eastern Conference, right? Because you're making it so much more top heavy. Some of these other teams, if you're the Knicks or Indiana or God forbid Orlando, like any of these teams that are really trying to get better, maybe get into the second round and fuck around, who knows, get a little frisky. If you get matched up with Boston before the conference finals, if you take them to 6 games, I genuinely think you should go home treating it like a win. And you are like any team in the Eastern Conference besides Milwaukee and Philly. So if you are not one of those two teams and you get 2 games on Boston, good for you. And then, of course, we've got super downstream the league. Just because, again, like when you just have this much talent from one to your top 6, 7 guys, it's honestly insane. So, I just can't make this the Warriors comparison enough. Like, my gut is telling me that I think it's time for Boston to win this entire thing. They have really just been kicking themselves in the ass and fucking up these postseasons, and everybody knows that, like, it is really ride or die time. And even with their current salaries and everything, it's not going to be very sustainable. So anyway, Boston's going to be desperate. Boston's already insane. So anyway, it's just hilarious. Since 2016, 5 Eastern Conference Finals, 1 final appearances, no rings. Tatum and Brown trade rumors that since fuck it, like 2016, I mean, every time they've gone out of the postseason virtually, it's like, man, you got these 2 really good wings, man. They kind of feel redundant. Who's going to get the ball? I don't know. Roster's finally optimized too, maximized. Shout out Joey M. I just can't not really see them. Honestly, I mean, obviously we'll see with the trade deadline, but as of now, again, and which is why this is my favorite under the radar take, is like, it has been an absolute masterclass of dominance. And I have not seen a single team this entire season, and I'm looking at you, Denver, play at their level. I'm not saying they can't. I just haven't seen it. This team better fucking win, or I hope the entire metropolitan area of Boston storms TD Garden with pitchforks and torches. I would. Let me just leave it there. So what's the conclusion? One of the most abominable teams in this year's season and league was the ringleader of the season so far. They were the ones flipping Drew and completing the Infinity Stones that comprises the most dominant team of the season so far. Honorable mentions. Harden, coming from strip clubs of fucking motherfucking his own GM from his honeymoon and, nostalgia Houston days, Daryl Morey, having strip club signs raised and calling him a liar in front of like high schoolers at a basketball camp in China. Unbelievable trajectory to forcing his way to the Clippers, who right now look like they could not only make the Western Conference Finals, but the finals. I know I gave some foreshadowing about that, but I just think that deserves to be mentioned here because I think just, again, at the beginning of the season, like, it was untreaded waters of holy shit. Like, is this like is there like legal precedent? Is there like legal grounding for like qualifying this as slanderous? Like, or libel? Like, I don't even know what those words mean. I'm not a lawyer, but like, this is like it's like defamatory isn't even appropriate. Anyway, I'm just fascinated about that. Guy didn't get paid. I totally get that. That sucks. But like, again, holy fucking shit. Talk about professionalism. Wow. Dude forces his way, and now the Clippers are fucking great, and Kawhi is back to 2019 Toronto Raptors Kawhi, and blah, blah, blah. And honestly, like, you have to award a lot of the credit of their success so far in turning this whole thing around to Harden. He's really proven he's still great when he wants to be. And I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, but I guess he's okay with not being on the ball as much when he trusts it'll find its way back to him. When you play with, two other fucking, really, really like all-time talented guys in PG and Kawhi. Ooh, excuse me. Man, it is late, huh? And then my last one here, I just got to give flowers to this year's standout rookies. I just think it's magic, and it's just so good for the league when rookies are showing out and impacting games much more than they typically are. I mean, a lot of times, unless you're, top 10, you're probably not starting even. So Chet, Wembanyama, Wemby, already great. Everybody knows everything about them. Nobody can stop talking about them, which is why I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But, Chet, kind of a redshirt year. Obviously, he was hurt all year last year, but whatever, technically a rookie. He has the perfect system for him, and I don't think it's fair to hold that against him, especially when he is like a serious impact player in like crunch time situations. Not to mention their only true not true center, but like guy with actual size to be a rim deterrent. He's incredible. Wemby, on the other hand, is a complete opposite. That is its own Scooby-Doo mystery of weird shadow tanking, and Popovich looks like he should have the life alert necklace on at every game. I hate to be the one to say this, but he might be 2 or 3 real bad calls and, screaming fits on the sidelines away from, needing a stretcher or something. I don't know. I'm just gonna say this right now. I don't know how much I like it. At least as far as how the season has just gone. That roster hurts my eyes to watch. If Jeremy Sohan is your starting point guard for more than 2.5 games, and you continue to not start Trey Jones, I just don't really know what to do. So anyway, that is that. Scoot Henderson, who I mentioned before, atrocious start. I actually felt really bad for the guy. He turned down playing college. Like, he was in the G League coming out of high school and did really well, right? And, busts just aren't fun. I'm sorry, as just a genuine fan of the sport and the league. Like, I don't like that. I think that's kind of sad, but he's turned it around. He's not fucking, he's not impacting as much as Chet or Wemby, but that trajectory has actually felt quite nice. Portland has too many guards still, but I don't know what happened to Scoot, but I think around like November, no, I think it was probably like December. It went from I don't really want to watch this guy because it makes me physically cringe to he's putting up like 25 a night, and some nights he doesn't even have more than 4 turnovers. So very up and down, very young, etc. Brandon Miller is another one. Dude is recently fucking on. I don't know if he's just been, kicking it with his former teammate, Terry Rozier, you know, suddenly or what, but the dude is just so fucking confident, and I am so, so grateful and so excited for that story, especially for a franchise. Oh, my God. That has not had a ton to be excited about. We'll leave it there. We love LaMelo. We really do. But he has his own issues with health and et cetera. So anyway, I'm excited for him. And then last but not least, how would anything ever be complete with my neighborhood? I don't know. Is UCLA my neighborhood? Sure. We'll go with that. My neighborhood university graduate, Jaime Jaquez Jr., coming out of UCLA, all 4 years. Been on this guy since March Madness. Incredible system player. I just am so happy he made it onto the Heat and or Warriors, frankly. If he was on the Warriors, I would want to kill myself. I'm going to say that right now. I swear to God, like I tune into Miami Heat games, and I actually still think to myself multiple times throughout the course of the game, I'm so fucking grateful he did not end up on the Warriors. I don't know why. I don't even know. I don't even remember the draft order, whatever. He didn't end up there, and he would just be so, so good, to all-time system teams, et cetera, et cetera. So, he's starting to look like a role player, support player, maybe third option kind of guy on a finals contending team. Like, this dude is so under control, so patient. I've heard on podcasts, guys on the Heat, like their take on him is like he's, I guess, an old soul, which just looks and feels right because he's just never kind of rushed. It kind of reminds me of like Luka in his second year when he made his first All-Star team, and it's like the thing with tempo, man. It is just a beautiful thing to watch. But I guess for both those guys, when you're 6'6" or 6'7", and you just, you play the role, the sort of large guard role there where you're matched up against guys you can, pass over and look over, blah, blah, blah. It helps, but really happy for the kid. So Chet, Wemby, different situations, they're generational talent. Please stay healthy. Scoot, Brandon are kind of I don't want to say black sheep, but kind of the black sheep high draft pick guys who are recently turning it on, and propping everyone else up is the unexpected greatness of Jaime Jaquez Jr. for the Miami Heat. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I know I said at least 3-4 times that I want to keep this short, so I'm going to head out. Thank you all so, so much for tuning in. First go at this, first episode with Think Shank. Really hope you guys enjoyed it, and let me know your thoughts. One more time, you can find Think Shank on Twitter and Instagram at Think Shank. Email thethinkshank@gmail.com. My name is Skyler. Once again, you can find me on Twitter at Reinhardt Skyler and Instagram at Skyler Sam Reinhardt. Thank you guys so, so much for coming aboard. It is January 25th, 2024, and I couldn't be happier to be an NBA fan this season. Take care. Until next time.